Good morning, everyone. This is Dan O'Sullivan with your Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, December 28th. Hey, we're going to be spending a little bit of time with our usual crowd. We got Josh, Lee, Tom, and Gentry going to kick knowledge on their lakes. We'll be right back with what the guys have to say. Hey, the fat man's come and gone, but we got our own little version of him right here to talk a little bit gifts on the water. We hope Christmas was great for you guys. Lee, thanks for everything that you do. Let's talk a little bit about the fishy gifts that come on Weiss Lake.
Well, I don't have a heavy sled this week, so I won't be bringing a whole lot of presents to you. But it's still, it's the wintertime fishing. The crappie, we'll start with it first, because right now the crappie they're biting. You can get out and you can have a pretty good day. Once again, doing multiple things to catch them. They're starting to get in the mouths of some of the bigger creeks, starting to suspend a little bit and get a little looser on some of the brush. So that means they're feeding a little bit better. Catching a lot of small fish, but you just got to beat and bang and work through. To get the keepers. We're a 10-inch size limit here on Weiss. I think we are the only lake on the Coosa that is a 10-inch. So we try to really take care of our fish, and right now we got a lot of little fish. So if you just want to get out and have a good time, you can cast on them. I know a lot of guys that with clients of mine, they like to throw. They like that old school throwing and working that brush and throwing and catching that, even putting a float on it and catching these suspended fish. So you can do a lot of different things right now and still catch fish.
All right, the bass bite. What's going on there?
It's slowed down a little bit. Still catching some pretty good size, but the bite has got fewer and far between. Still, that river has been the key. The little pockets, the mouth, right there on that river. Even a bigger spinner bait, if you got some sunshine and some wind, has been pretty good. But it's slowing down with the smaller jigs. That black and blue is turning on now. The black and blue jig. It's that wintertime deal, and even a jerk bait some. So it's just a slower presentation. Slow down. It's cold. You don't want to get out there and run up and down the river and let the wind blow your hair.
What about Neely Henry? We got about 45 seconds.
Neely is about the same fishing wise as Weiss right now. Crappie are doing a little bit better, but you can still catch, with Neely, that river system, you can still, your harder bottoms, your little mouse that's got a little ditch into it, they seem to be staging up on that. Key to it's current. You get some water moving, the fish get a little more active. They want to feed some. Once again, you can throw a trap down there and a crankbait a little bit and still get bit, but it's just one of those deals. If you got current, you can be a little more aggressive to them. If there's no current, you got to slow down and just kind of pick them.
Lee, as always, brother, we appreciate everything. We will talk to you again next week, my friend. Hey, we've got our red-headed, red-bearded friend joining us back here after working so hard, getting ready for shows and everything. We got Josh Heron from Tato Designs. Going to spend some time with us, talk a little bit of Logan Martin and Lay Lake fishing. Josh, let's start at Logan Martin.
Man, it's just wintertime fishing at Logan right now. Flatbait's starting to kind of shine a little bit, so that can be a good time, especially when you get a little sun. Live scope fish are still playing. You still got a lot of fish on bait in the river right now. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's a really good way to get bit. I mean, we're just kind of settling into it right now. Nothing's going to be kind of like Hills Bells, so as we kind of get the water temps down into the lower 50s, fish are going to kind of stabilize where they're at, and it's going to be a lot less running around and a little bit more soaking stuff.
What kind of water temperatures are we seeing right now? Is it mid to upper 50s still?
Yeah, it's still like 54, 55 for the most part. And I mean, my favorite temps on Logan are that 48 to 52 in the wintertime. It seems like it sets those fish up a lot better, especially on sunny days where you can still catch them pretty shallow on like flat baits, chatterbaits, casting a jig, stuff like that. They'll kind of pull up, especially on like red clay and rock, and really use that radiant heat. So it makes those fish a lot more predictable. And hopefully we get a brutal cold winter this year, and we get a bunch of these little bitty shad to kind of die off.
Yeah, that would be helpful. What about the crappie? You seeing crappie fishermen out there?
They are everywhere, man. They are in droves. So the crappie are definitely biting right now. You see more crappie on live scope right now than you do bass, and they're
Okay.
anywhere from 35 foot to under a dock. Like they are everywhere right now. So
Right.
they are definitely willing to play ball. Uh, Lay's kind of setting up the same way, except Lay, I like. This is my favorite time of year at Lay because the jerkbait fish really fire up. It's what I really like to do
Mm.
down there in the wintertime. Fish really set up on timber good, and they set up in these creek mouths. So jerkbait's really good this time of year down there. Really sunny days, you got to kind of pick your poison. Grass fish will still play, but I like the flatter mats this time of year. So it's not necessarily a swim jig thing; it's more of a flipping deal. Most of the running grass has died off now. There's still strings of it here and there, so swim jigs will still play in some of that stuff where it still exists. But for the most part, we've kind of got on over into the flipping part of the year.
Josh, as always, brother, we appreciate everything. Welcome back. We'll talk to you again soon, brother. Hey, the Christmas hangover's behind us. The gifts are unwrapped. And Tom Ott's going to tell us what they unwrap at Guntersville during this time of the year. Tom, what's happening up there on the big lake?
Well, Dano, Santa's not the only fat thing out there on the lake right now. So there's plenty of big fat bass, plenty of big fat crappie. I think right now the only hindrance that's going to be from catching fish is going to be weather, and that's just going to be because the fishermen aren't going to enjoy it. But we got
Yep.
some rain coming, a little bit cooler weather, that kind of stuff. But I think the wind will probably hurt us more than anything. But we've got a couple of days here, where we can get out and enjoy those fish. We talked about the birds last week, and one thing I was just out a few days ago, and I noticed a ton of these giant white pelicans. I think we talked about that. And one thing I was gonna say was the fact that the seagulls diving, really keys you into the fact that fish are being, baits being pushed to the surface. But those pelicans and then the loons tend to kind of get, when you see those loons scattered out across an area, they really surround a big wad of bait, a big school of bait, and they just keep pushing it tighter and tighter. So those outside edges are really, if you're out there doing some scoping or something like that, that's where you want to get out for the bass. As far as the crappie goes, when you see those birds like that and they're pushed up near the bank, those are the banks that you want to be near when you're crappie fishing. I mean, the causeways. I talked to a guy the other day about causeway fishing. He didn't have a boat, didn't want to get out, but anywhere that you see those rocky banks with steep drop offs, those are going to be great places for crappie. Of course, the bait's going to be the real dictator, but those are just the areas right now that everybody's keying on to catch their fish.
Okay, so you talk about where the fish are located. What kind of techniques do you want to see?
Well, I tell you, right now everybody's throwing for the bass, everybody's throwing one of these small minnows, a hover rig type thing, maybe even a jerk bait. All of those are really producing well because when you see those fish up high in the water column and they're under bait, they're eating, and it just makes it you don't have to make as an accurate cast as you normally would, and the fish are very, very aggressive. You can usually pick one or two off, but if you see these guys on their trolling motors, you'll understand why, because those fish are moving very quickly around these baits or these balls of bait. And it's not an easy thing, but if you just want to try it, it's absolutely fun. I don't think I could do it for a tournament myself. I'm too ADHD, but at the same time, I think I would enjoy. It's a lot of fun just to get out there and do a little video game fishing. It reminds me of the old days with the drop shot. When we first started doing that with 2D sonar and the drop shot. But it's a lot more exciting. As far as the crappie go,
Tom, as
just a
always,
little. Yeah, do what?
Tom, as always, brother, we appreciate everything, and we'll talk to you again next week, my friend. Hey, Christmas is beyond us, but the lakes are still kicking out some presents, I think. We're going to check in with Gentry Gordy right now, talk a little bit of Jordan Lake and Lake Martin. Gentry, let's do Lake Martin again today first. What's going on over there?
A lot of the same, Dano, but I have noticed, with the water temperature getting cooler, that the steeper banks on Martin that's got the dark colored rock, they're not everywhere, but it's a lot of places on Martin, and we've seen it on different lakes, especially with Dowie. It's just the time of year when them rocks just seem to hold better fish. They heat up, I guess they say. But it's just, anything from bluff walls to just the steeper rock banks. Even kicked out some largemouth this past week. So, that's always a plus on Martin. But other than that, a lot of it, I'm still skipping some docks. And when the wind picks up, the roof tail, the underspin, I can see them. I can see them on forward facing sonar. Sometimes just that slow swim bait coming by will trigger them.
Gotcha. Is that what it is? Are they suspended, or are you able to hit stuff on the bottom?
Man, with Martin, it's all depending on where the clouds are doing, or is it bright sunny days? But they're a little bit of both. It's just some days they're going to react better if they're suspended. Some days you got to hit a brush pile to get them to react.
What about crappie? You still seeing them off those big brush piles and people out there fishing those?
Yeah, and even talked to a guy that he said that he's got some places in 8 to 10 foot that's holding some decent ones.
Okay. All right. Let's turn our attention to Jordan Lake. What are you seeing out of there?
Man, the broken record. It's their live scoping them up until when the water's clear, or until it gets like muddy. You just can't compete with the guys, man. They're slow rolling them swim baits and the minnows and the A rigs. And that's just the way it is. And it's not just, Jordan, it's Mitchell. It's all the same. But, you can still go to the bank and catch some fish, just competitive wise. You really got to be offshore. But, the dead grass, you can still get a bite in the dead grass and just dock fishing and trash piles. I did talk to a friend that actually caught some good fish up there on a crankbait over some of them shallower points. Or, to me, shallower at Jordan, you're 10 to 12 foot. Some of them longer running points. Got some to react on a crankbait.
Yeah, and the current's not been doing much here at all lately because there's not much drain or need for power. So pretty much going to have to look for suspended fish. Gentry, as always, brother, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon. Well, that'll wrap up our Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, December the 28th. We hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. We hope you got to spend some good time with some family. And we hope you're looking forward to a great new year. 2025 is upon us. We'll be open January 7th. Look forward to seeing you. You are the best part of Bucks Island, and we hope you have a wonderful New Year celebration.